Afternoon, everybody. This is Mark Hinderleiter. Welcome to the regular Thursday afternoon Executive Leadership Series. So the approach to these discussions is just to have open discussions at the end of each of these presentations. And the way to do that is just to send questions through the chat feature or just kind of hang on to the end of the presentation and then we can unmute everybody and ask questions. So that's the approach. So presenters, I'm Mark Hinderleiter. My sidekick is Mark Johnson. Mark and I have been doing this for several weeks now. Mark's an executive technology advisor. He is the CEO of Xtree, and Mark's been a CIO and senior VP of big companies, global companies, billion-dollar Fortune 500 companies with 100,000 people on one side of the spectrum, and on the other side, small startups, rapid growth companies. And so that set of experiences to me is really pretty unique and makes Mark an IT technology leader worth listening to. Also on the call, we're going to have to add his bio, is Rod Branch. Rod's been joining us for the last few calls. Rod is one of the thought leaders that I really respect, not only just general business, but specific to HR, leadership, culture, and those kind of things. So Rod will be joining us in this dialogue. All right, Mr. Mark, I'm going to give you the baton.
All right, thank you, Mark. Appreciate the introduction. So if you've tuned in the last couple of weeks, you hear us often talk about change. And boy, have we seen a lot of change over the last couple of months. And even more recently, every time we think we figured out the change that we're challenged with recently with the COVID crisis, here comes another change. So one of the things that should be clear to everybody is we are living in a time of not just change, but rapid change. And so the success of your business is greatly dependent on not only adapting, but how rapidly can you adapt to those changes? What's the timing for being able to change your business to be able to meet the needs of those upcoming changes? The other thing that should be clear as well, while this is a cartoon, it's also very true and compelling, is that there is a lot of companies for a year or two that said, we hear about this term digital transformation, but as in the cartoon, they didn't really believe they had to act on it. And this crisis really, it was a wrecking ball to a lot of them. You've seen a lot of big name companies that have been around for a long time declare bankruptcy recently. And one of the big drivers was they weren't able to adapt and change to these new times. So digital transformation is real, and it's something that everybody must be not just executing, but executing well. I'll give you an example. We've probably all experienced this lately. When some of the retailers that I used to frequent in the past were closed because they couldn't open because of COVID, I went online and tried to order some products from them. And when I went to their website, I saw these warnings everywhere that says, because of the crisis, we're delayed and it could be weeks and weeks before you can get your product. And so I went to another retailer named Amazon, and they had the same product, and they said they could deliver it in 2 days. So who do you think got that sale? And that's happening over and over and over again today. So digital transformation and an ability for a company to meet the new demands of customers is real. And so let's talk about what it takes to be successful. So the benefits of digital transformation are large and compelling. And here's just a few. There's the top 10 that I listed. The list is even longer. But let's just look at the top one or two of these. One of the big ones is the ability to be agile and flex, to be able to move your resources to where you need them quickly, to allow them to work from wherever you need to work from. If the location is shut down, to be able to quickly flex and move them to a different location to support the customer. It's also, the big benefit is improving the customer experience. In the example I gave you earlier, as a customer, I couldn't wait a month for the product. I needed it now. So the ability to quickly adapt and still deliver a great customer experience is also one of the compelling benefits of digital transformation. So with this long list of benefits, why are so many companies still lagging behind? Well, I think there's a number of reasons, and here's 4. One, there's still some companies, as we always see when change is going on, that just hopes that the current state will be okay. They can kind of just keep their head in the sand and business as usual, and they'll survive it. That's probably not history shows that's not a good long-term strategy. The second one is a lot of people really don't know what digital transformation really means. And there's a lot of confusion around that. So, and the confusion is not just in what you read. There's unfortunately a lot of consulting firms out there that I think have not provided an accurate picture of it. So I've seen even consulting firms and tech vendors say, we'll sell you a new system and that'll be your digital transformation. Well, as you'll see during this discussion, digital transformation is not about upgrading a system. There's a lot more to it than that. So we're going to give some clarity to what this really means and help you understand it. The other reason I think is that it can seem really daunting. When you talk about changing a business and changing processes, it can seem daunting. And people struggle with, well, where do I even begin such a thing? How do I re-engineer my processes and the way my company's operated for so many years? So how do I begin that process? So let's talk about that so that's very clear to everybody. So, today's meeting is helping you understand it, helping you to understand those next steps so you can get started. One of the things I want to start with is what digital transformation is not. As I mentioned earlier, it's not just about the tech. The tech is a component, but it's really about how you optimize your operations and your processes. But you look at this picture in a holistic manner. I always recommend starting with the optimal customer experience, and then we talk through what are the right processes, the right people, the right tools and skills to deliver that. So we'll talk about how you orchestrate that. But it starts with understanding where you currently are and what's it going to take to get that target state that's going to give the best optimal experience. So I've came up with this very simple 5-step process. Again, the reason a lot of companies haven't started this or haven't done a really good job on it is it seems daunting. So we want to take what could be complex and make it simple and very easy to follow. So let's start with step number 1. The first step, which is probably the reason so many of these digital transformation initiatives fail, is you got to have buy-in throughout the entire organization. It starts with the executive leadership, but every employee has to be on board and understand this is the future and everybody's going to participate and be successful in this. The second one is, for some fundamental change like this, you really need to have the right expertise as part of your organization. You've probably heard the phrase, what the resources that got you to this point probably aren't the right ones to get you to the next point. And it's so true on this. When somebody's in the middle of business and been there for a long time, sometimes it's hard for them to visualize what the future state should look like. So you need that unbiased expert that really understands digital transformation and can help you see past the old ways of doing things and help you visualize and implement the new way. So getting the right catalyst and expertise on board is really key to success. The third is you'd sit down as a leadership team and with your expert to define what's your current state and really get an objective, clear understanding of where you are today. And then we talk about what your target state looks like and what the best customer experience would look like for your customers. And then we talk through the processes and the people and what are the tools that would support that new target process. The other thing that's really important to get the financial benefits is this is where we'd also talk about cost redistribution. So when you do this, your operations are going to change. And so we need to talk about when do those costs move from the old state to the new state. You don't want to continue to run both. Then you've just duplicated your costs and missed the big value. So you may have a transition cost, but you ultimately want to see a movement of the old cost going away and the new cost being reallocated to help you with this new process. So we would talk through that definition and make sure we achieve the best value before we even take the first step in this definition phase. Then we move into execution. And I always, as we come up with the big plan, we'd sit down and say, where's our highest value areas? Where's the big impacts that we can see right away? And we would start with that and achieve success and let people see the value. And it really helps you get the momentum going when you do so. The other key is speed. You want to do this quickly. In the old days, people used to do projects that took years. And there's a lot of reasons that fails. People get fatigued, they lose interest. It just doesn't work when you stretch it out over a long period of time. So you really need to have the right catalyst and a timely timeline that pushes this to quick success. It also allows you that if things are not on the right track to quickly change instead of spending a long time finding out that you're not on the right track. And then part of this execution as well is we have to quickly identify where there's resistance, where things are having challenges, and quickly address that to be successful. So execution is very key to success. And then the fifth is, this is an ongoing process. It's an ongoing cycle of we will implement these pieces of change, we'll see how it's working, and we'll modify it and refine it to find the optimal setup for your business. So this 5-step process is an ongoing process that we will continually have conversations about and continue to improve the business over time. And it will become more and more digital, more and more agile as we get further along this process. So one of the things that you want to make sure as we go through this is every employee should know these 3 things. I always start with, they should all know the vision. Whether it's this initiative or any, I always been a big believer that people need to understand what's the target look like? Why are we doing this? What's the vision for the business, and what's their role in this initiative? If everybody knows their role and why we're doing it and how they play in this vision, they will figure out a lot of the tasks for themselves and they will be part of it. So make sure you do a great job of sharing this with your employees, and everybody's got a shared vision and a shared view of the plan. Make sure everybody also understands this is required. It's not optional. There's always going to be those few that want to hold on to the old, and you have to coach them and help them see that this is required for success and their commitment is required in moving forward. So let's take an example. This applies for any industry. And I've had business leaders, what I've met with, say, oh, but Mark, we're in oil and gas has always been the way it's been for years. It applies to oil and gas. I've had the same conversation with healthcare. Healthcare has been healthcare for years. Yes, but it's changing, and we're all seeing those changes recently. Same thing could be said about the grocery business. For years, people say, hey, you go to the grocery store, you get your groceries, right? Pretty simple. Not anymore. If you're in the grocery business, there's a lot of change. So as a customer, a few of them started with saying, we'll give you curbside pickup. You can come to the store and you don't have to go inside. We'll just bring the groceries out to you. But then others came along and said, we'll go one step further. We'll bring it to you. We'll take it to your home or to your business. We'll take it to wherever you'd like it to be. And so now grocery stores have been having to adapt and rethink how they deliver those new services. And it's not just about remote and delivery. Even if you have a in-store grocery store experience, how do you improve that experience? So let's talk about traditionally how you go to the grocery store and shop. And let's think about how it works from a customer experience. So in a typical grocery store, you walk in, you get your basket, you put your groceries in your basket that you select from the grocery, and then if you gather them all up, you take them to the checkout stand, you take them back out of the basket, put them up on a conveyor belt so they can ring them up, and then they bag them and put them in your basket again. So you've handled those groceries 3 times. Not a very efficient, not a very good customer experience. So if you guys have ever seen the new Amazon Go stores that they've rolled out, you touch your groceries once. When you walk in the store, there's these registers that register on your app that you entered the store. And as you put groceries off the shelf into your bag, it has cameras and other detection mechanisms that brings it up. And once you've pulled your groceries and put them in your bag, you simply walk out of the store and you'll get a digital receipt for the groceries you've purchased. Now, which experience do you feel is the most efficient and most enjoyable? So the point is, there's processes that have to be talked through in each of these scenarios. And as a business, you have to look at all of them. You have to think through your digital transformation for each of your customer bases and how do they want to engage with your business. If you don't do it, somebody else is, and they're going to seize the advantage. So let's talk about the other key point of digital transformation. With any innovation, any change, there's a defined window of opportunity. It's a race for who's the first to get to that window of opportunity. So if you are a retailer and you say, hey, I got a great idea. In the next 6 months, let's do curbside delivery. Guess what? That's not innovation. That's not an advantage for you in the marketplace. You're just playing catch up. You're just doing that to try to stay even with the competition, and you haven't really gained any advantage in the marketplace. But those first movers that are the first to provide these superior customer experiences, they have a tremendous advantage. The customers move to them because they have the better advantage. And so you have to think about digital transformation as to how do you leapfrog customers? How do you seize this window of opportunity to gain the advantage? And that's the bottom line, is that there will be companies during these changing times that will become the new market leaders. They will seize those windows and they will become the new market leaders. And you'll see others that lag behind and struggle to catch up. They're going to struggle to survive. And we've already started seeing a lot of those big traditional names start to fade, and many of them declared bankruptcy recently. So as a business leader, it's your responsibility to make sure you're the one seizing those windows of opportunity and becoming the market leader. You can't afford to struggle to survive. So how do you get started? As we have said before, the hardest step's the first step. So it starts with the executive leadership saying, we're going to do this. This is the future of our business. Let's define it and let's get this moving in the right direction. So let's open it up for discussion.
Good stuff, Mark. I just went to Chick-fil-A the other day, and I'm driving, and my wife orders online on her phone, and we pull up into it. We don't have to go in the line in the drive-through, and you just pull in there, and then she texts them the number of the spot that we pulled in, and they come out with it. And so just pretty slick. But it was really about the customer experience. We didn't sit in line.
Right.
So a couple questions, and I know Rod will have. So I was talking to a CEO about a year ago, and his company was doing digital transformation. Specifically, they were implementing a ERP system. And I asked him, so what's going on? How are you feeling about it? He said, here's my problem. My problem is I'm not a technology guy. I'm a business guy. And I don't know what I don't know. I don't even know what questions to ask.
Right.
I've got consultants that are helping me, but I also, feel like I kind of have to manage that too, right? to manage cost and scope creep and all that. So I guess maybe my question to you, kind of through the CEO, is how do you know where the landmines are?
Right. That's that. If you remember those 5 steps we talked about, number 2 was finding the right expertise. And that is so key to success. And I see a lot of missteps on that. For one, you can't let the vendor that's installing the product be that expert. That's kind of like having the wolf guard the hen house.
That's exactly what his concern was.
So you need that independent expert that's thinking about your best interest, that's actually helping you manage that vendor and managing the cost of that implementation, that's thinking as part of your team, not as part of, if you're a part of the vendor, you're the vendor thinking about how do I make more money off this engagement. That's what those guys think about. You need that independent, trusted advisor to help you think through these things. You're right, Mark, most CEOs are not technology or digital transformation experts. And that's the reason they have to find that right trusted advisor, be that right arm for them to make sure they're getting the value. You and I have both seen, Mark, companies that have spent a lot of money on initiatives like this and it was not successful. And a lot of it was because they didn't have the right expertise lined up and they had people that took them down the wrong course. And so that second piece is so key to get the right guidance.
I appreciate that. I've seen the wolf guarding the chicken house that cost the company tens of millions of dollars, by the way.
Right.
And a lot of time. So the second question is, do you have to be deep pockets, big company, Amazon, Chick-fil-A, whatever kind of big company name that you put in there to be able to do digital transformation?
It's a great question, Mark. And the answer is absolutely not. Today, especially with the way tools have evolved, again, if you think back to what we talked about earlier, you don't even start with the technology or the tools. You start with the processes and thinking through the processes and the people side of this. How do you optimize that? You can get tremendous value just rethinking your processes and your people. And sometimes the tool change is very minimal. The technology change is very minimal. So you start with that. And again, with the right guidance, taking you down the right sequence, the cost doesn't have to be significant. Where I see the misstep is too many companies start with, we've already picked out this SAP system. We've picked out this ERP system, and they've bought the tool before they even know what it is they need.
Yeah.
So you don't start with the tools and the technology. You start with what's your target look like, what are the processes and the changes you make to get there, and then decide, do you need different tools or how do you augment the tools you have to get you to that target state? Now, why is that different than what so many have done in the past? Again, if you're going to a company that sells ERP systems and CRM systems, they're not going to give you the advice that I just gave you. They're going to tell you you need to upgrade your ERP or buy a new system. That's the business they're in. And I don't think that's where you lead. I think you lead with thinking more like a business mindset, and then you decide if you need more tools and technology to optimize.
Good. So it really starts with business strategy, not technology strategy.
That's right.
That's what I hear you saying.
That's right. And remember that diagram, the technology is just one component of it. The people and the processes are probably even more key to success. And then the technology, think of as something that supports that and augments that and makes that run even better. So, but never lead with the technology. I would say that not just for digital transformation, but across the board. You don't lead with the tech, you lead with the business needs and the business goals.
So the examples that you kind of talked about was, it really started with the customer experience.
That's right.
Right. With kind of that Whole Foods store or Chick-fil-A or, whoever, that was the starting point. How do we make this a better customer experience? Amazon, that's what that whole thing was about. Right. And then the technology was deployed to do that.
Yeah. And I know everybody talks a lot about Amazon, but they really have mastered this process. If you think about the history of Amazon, they're always totally focused on that customer experience. And even when Jeff Bezos got a lot of flack from investors about how you keep investing in this customer experience thing, but he is mastering the experience. Now, you never heard him talk about the tech at all. You never heard Jeff Bezos, but the tech was a key component behind the scenes. Matter of fact, the tech was so good at supporting his retail business, he looked around and says, wow, there's other people that need this. I'll sell this as another service called AWS. And now AWS makes almost as much money as the retail side. But he never led with the tech. He led with the experience.
Yeah. Steve Jobs did that, didn't he? With kind of the rolling out the iPods and the smartphones. His presentation was about how cool is this for the user.
That's right.
You got 1,000 songs in your pocket,
yep.
right? I mean, it was about that customer, that user experience.
Simon Sinek does a really good job of taking that Apple example and showing you that, you know, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, which is taking complete control of your life by having this iPhone that controls all these other things.
Yeah.
I had a couple of thoughts about the leadership angle of this, which I think it's important because leadership's important to me. It may not be important to everyone else, but some observations that I have. This whole change aspect and going into a new system that they've not seen before causes an unknown, which causes some fear and angst in people. And the leader needs to step in there as Mark identified and be really clear about the objective. And he can paint the picture of the amount of information that's out there is doubling every day now, according to IBM's study that they did. And with that much information, the winner here is going to be the person or the company that's able to process that information into salient business moves as rapidly as possible and be that first mover, like the curbside pickup, exactly the same thing. And then communicating that to the people in a way where they can get behind it and converting that fear to confidence. And that we're in this age of continual instability, and now we've got to get them comfortable with this constant change that we have going forward, and that leaving your comfort zone or anything that's sort of counter to your personality or your frame of reference or your personal history causes stress. And so our leadership has to get people comfortable so they can be productive. Until you get them comfortable with the confidence that we're going in the right direction, you know, they won't be productive. And I'm coaching a couple of younger people right now, and something I have to continually keep in mind in terms of change, and this is a little bit different than what we're talking about, but somewhat related, in that the job they're going to have at the end of their career doesn't even exist right now. They've got a 40-year career, and if you think back 40 years, some of the stuff we're doing right now didn't exist.
Yeah,
some of the
right.
jobs that were around didn't exist when we started our careers 30 or 40 years ago. And so if you can imagine the amount of change they're going to see in the next 40 years, they can't even imagine what the end of their career is going to be. And so I'm coaching to build in flexibility and nimbleness into their approach to their career, making sure they leave themselves options. So just a few observations about the leadership angle.
Yeah, my experience with digital transformation, whether it was the general business or the HR side of it that I led up, and as you have, Rod, is user acceptance is a thing that we kept running into, and that was all about the leadership side of it. It was all about communicating what we're doing, why we're doing it. Mark talked about that early on in the discussion, and what we expect of people to get on board. So that's a big part of that leadership conversation is user acceptance and, you know, what we expect people to do. So again, the leadership piece has to be there, the strategy piece has to be there, and the technology is just the enabler.
Great point.
Agreed.
Excellent. Great point, Mark and Rod. Yeah, the leadership, and the reason it's step one is where it all begins. And to your point, Rod, you have to establish the plan. You have to give them confidence. Employees today want to see that vision. They want to know, where are we going? How do I know where to be successful? What's my role in what we're trying to accomplish here? So as an effective business leader, it really starts there to make that really clear as to where the company's going during these changing times, how we're going to be successful, really make that vision crystal clear and make sure everybody understands how they're a part of that.
So I guess my last comment is something Rod said a couple weeks ago, that the managing change is changing. So as I think about your discussion here today, Mark, is that this is no longer like an initiative, right? This is not a program that we're going to put in and then go on to the next thing. Digital transformation, managing change, improving customer experiences is an ongoing forever thing nowadays, because somebody's going to run over you if you don't.
That's an excellent point, Mark. You know, I remember years ago when the internet was just coming of age, and there were CEOs and business leaders that I work with that says, this internet thing, I don't really know if that's something we need to be paying attention to. It's probably just a fad. And we used to emphasize how it has to be a new integral part of their thinking. Yeah. Now, years later, obviously, everybody knows that the internet's and your e-strategy is critical. Well, to your point, Mark, digital transformation is the same. It's not just some latest project or latest initiative. It's the new way of doing business.
Yeah.
And so we have to think about that.
Yeah. Hey, right. Good stuff. Thank you for tuning in and listening. If anybody wants a copy of this discussion, this screen here, you see Mark's information and my information. We'll be posting this on LinkedIn. And so I know Rod will do the same thing, and so will Mark and I. So a lot of ways to get access to this discussion. So Mark, Rod, great stuff. Great conversation. See you all next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Great job.
Yeah.